What's up, it's Cinema Shogun here, and woof! Today has been insane. Yesterday was insane. We are going into the new year on a crazy news cycle of non-stop updates about all types of stuff. It seems like the world around us is burning. I can't wait for 2023. I have a lot of big things planned for 2023. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, make sure you ring that notification bell, and make sure you follow me on Swagit. The link will be in the pinned comment. Now, as you all know, we have been talking about Bryan Kohberger for over the last 24 hours now. We've been digging into his past. We've heard from friends, family. We've heard all types of stuff, right? I'm sure you've seen probably at least 100 fake Instagram accounts by now. How many of you all were fooled by that nonsense? Hopefully not a lot of you all, because I try to encourage you all to use your critical thinking skills on this channel. And a lot of the stuff that is out there, not only is it fake, it is very obviously fake. So do not be fooled by a lot of that nonsense. But I made a point on a few of my videos on this channel and over on my other channel, Fat and Opinionated. I made the point that, we got the news that Bryan returned back to class and finished out the school semester after allegedly carrying out this crazy act, right? I made the point, and I think other people have probably made this point as well, that in class, at college, people had to be talking about this case around him. Bryan was a college student as well. And I think this case is probably the talk of a lot of college campuses, especially college campuses that aren't too far away from where this incident took place. So I can only imagine, and I made this point, that Bryan was going to school acting like nothing happened while being surrounded by people who were more than likely talking about this, because everyone has been talking about this. You can't turn on a news station, read a newspaper, you could barely go on YouTube without hearing about this case. So you know that Bryan, being so close to this case, being on a college campus, a college student himself, surrounded by other college students, you know that he had to be caught in some awkward situations where people were conversing about this case around him. Well, of course, that was just an opinion. That was just speculation. We aren't there in the classroom. We don't know what conversations they have, but I think that would be a good guess, right? Well, it turns out that has been confirmed. Bryan's classmates actually had conversations about this case right in front of Bryan. And from what they say, Bryan returned to school after committing this heinous act, and he was actually more cheerful and chatty than ever before. Now that is creepy. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into this article so I can give you all the rundown of what is going on here. But like I said, make sure you download that Swagit app and follow me over there as well, because I have some news that I will be providing over there tonight. Because, listen, I'm uploading so many YouTube videos to the point that I'm having to upload videos on multiple channels. There's so much information coming out that I'm going to have to utilize other social media platforms to break some of this news as well. But let's go ahead and go into this article. Classmates of the Idaho quadruple murder suspect have said he became more chatty in their criminology class after November's quadruple slaying. But he turned silent when the incident itself was discussed. Bryan Kohberger, 28, was taken into custody by the Pennsylvania State Police on Friday morning, more than 2,000 miles away from where 4 university students were unalived in their beds on November 13th. Students who attended Washington State University with Kohberger were shocked to learn that the quiet man in their classroom was the prime suspect in the brutal slaying. B.K. Norton, who was in the same criminal justice graduate program with Kohberger, said her classmate appeared more animated and talkative following the incident. He seemed more upbeat and more willing to carry a conversation, she says. But Norton noted all of his enthusiasm would suddenly go away, and he would become quiet and deadpan when the class would discuss the Idaho murder case. I want to pause right there for a moment, because another point that for some reason I forgot to make. I mean, obviously, when you're on a college campus so close to where this happened, like I said, obviously people are going to be talking about it. But also, you have to look at what he's going to school for. He's going to school for criminal justice and criminology, so they're hyper-focusing on talking about this case in his classrooms. It's not just, little gossip probably going around, between students that he sits next to, but also they probably tackle that topic in class. The professor or the teacher, the instructor, probably talks about it as well. So at some point, I imagine Bryan Kohberger had to be sitting there as his professor was probably giving a lecture about this case or talking about this case. And that right there is insane. But let's go ahead and hop right back into this article. Okay, where was I? Okay, here I am. I don't believe he had any reaction, Norton says, saying it was odd because everyone else was glued to the case and speculated on the lack of public information. We had quite a long conversation in class about it too. I don't believe I remember him commenting about it at all. Norton says that her class was in shock over Kohberger's arrest, describing him as a smart and quiet student with an interest in forensic psychology. He sort of creeped people out because he stared and didn't talk much. But when he did talk, it was very intelligent, and he needed everyone to know that he was smart, Norton says. Another student who spoke with the Times under the condition of anonymity backed up Norton's claim and said Kohberger didn't have many friends at the school because of the alleged offensive remarks that he would sometimes make. Ben Roberts, a classmate of Kohberger and Norton, echoed the suspect's usual quiet nature in class, but said his demeanor changed after the incidents. He was starting to show up really tired, Roberts told the Seattle Times. He'd always have a cup of coffee in his hand, and he kind of looked like he was riding the knife edge between worn out and completely exhausted. So that is obviously very interesting and very telling. I can tell you right now that I've gone over so many different accounts from people who knew Bryan at this point. I think we've gone through, at least a half a dozen by now, and everyone has a different story to tell. Everyone, I think, got a different vibe from Bryan. Over on my other channel, Fat and Opinionated, we talked about how Bryan actually had this friend who felt comfortable enough with him that he would invite Bryan out to go night jogging with him because he was kind of scared to go jogging by himself. And Bryan made him feel safe and comfortable enough to want to invite him along for night jogs. So Bryan wasn't this person that completely lacked a personality and completely lacked the ability to connect with other humans. And sometimes people who do things like Bryan did, they are those sheltered individuals who have a hard time really interacting with other people. And I got the impression that that was the type of person Bryan was, but I think if you got Bryan to open up, maybe Bryan wasn't that way with everyone. So when we hear these accounts of Bryan often staring at people and not saying much, that seems like that's what I think of when I look at Bryan. And I think of the crimes he committed. I think of someone who would have that blank stare. Someone who didn't understand the normal social cues, of, hey, maybe not stare at people, maybe not say certain things. But as another classmate said, Bryan felt the need to make sure that people knew he was smart. I can tell you right now, people who do things like Bryan did, they're often very insecure, but they often try to put out this false sense of confidence. And I wonder if Bryan gained a new set of confidence after committing this act, because they said that he came back to school cheery, more talkative, and more interactive. And usually when you're more cheery, more talkative, and more interactive, that means you're more confident than what you used to be. The more confident someone is, usually the more outgoing they could be at times. So I wonder if that's what happened here. Was this something that was relieving to Bryan, something that Bryan wanted to do for so long, and then finally after he did it, he felt like this state of euphoria where he was more happier, than he's ever been? Or was that him overcompensating? Was he putting out that false sense of being happy and more joyous than usual so people wouldn't look at him weirdly, even though, of course, no one would have a reason to look at him weirdly, because I don't think anyone would automatically expect or suspect that Bryan did this. So, there are various possibilities, obviously, but it's fun kind of brainstorming the possibilities. It's not necessarily fun in the sense of woohoo, but it's like, it's interesting, if you will. And when you look into these type of cases, these are the type of things that really catch your interest. What makes people do stuff like this? And Bryan himself seemed to be interested in what made people commit crimes. Yet here he is, allegedly doing something far worse than most people could ever imagine. But knowing that he came back to school, that was sick in itself. I think that showed that he didn't show much remorse. I think that showed that he had this thing. I got to be careful because I want to throw out opinions and speculation sometimes. And I don't want people to run wild with it as if it is facts, because I'm sharing thoughts and my feelings right now. I think adults should be able to decipher between facts. We shared the facts about what people said in the classroom. Now I'm expanding upon that with my own opinions and my own speculation. I think the fact that Bryan went back to school shows that Bryan had this kind of planned. I really think if this was just a spur of the moment thing, that he wouldn't have been as cool, cold-hearted, and calculated, if you will. And looking at it and knowing that he went back to class, knowing that he sat down and finished the semester, but then left, I can't help but feel like he maybe sensed that things were getting too hot. The information got put out there about the car type they were looking for. Next thing you know, Bryan's hauling ass across the country. Now, it was during the holidays. Was he just traveling for the holidays? Or was Bryan running away? Did Bryan specifically wait until the holidays to run away because it would make it look less suspicious? Because people are always traveling that time of year. There are so many questions to unpack here, and I would like to know the answer to these questions. But yeah, my mind is all over the place because there are numerous possibilities here. But I can't help but honestly feel sick to my stomach, like my stomach twists up a little bit when you think about Bryan doing something so gruesome and grotesque and evil, and then to not only return to school, but a new man, happier and more joyful, more interactive. Now you're going to talk to your classmates that you rarely talk to. Sick. It is so sick, man. No matter how many cases I look into, I don't grow numb to these situations. I have yet to grow numb to these situations. And I am always absolutely disgusted by the stuff that comes out of these cases. And I'm absolutely disgusted by the people who are capable of doing things like this. And not only capable of doing things like this, but the people who are capable of pulling off these crimes and then going back to day-to-day life. How do you live with yourself? How do you live with yourself? Was Bryan having trouble sleeping? His classmates seem to think so. But maybe Bryan was just up studying. Maybe Bryan was up planning something else. I have a hard time believing that this was the first thing that Bryan did. And I'm not saying that there are maybe other human victims, but I think Bryan's probably done something crazy before. And if not, then I think that Bryan would probably do something crazy again if he had gotten away with this. But let me know your thoughts about all of this down in the comments below. I know it is a lot. It is a lot. So feel free to share as many of your thoughts as you want. Comment 1,000 times. I don't care. I'll try to read through them all. But while you're down there, hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe, ring the notification bell. Be sure to follow me on Swagit, and I will talk to you all in the next video.